And we're live. Welcome to yet another MHC session, How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci. Today, we're going to discuss 7 steps to genius every day with none other than the very illustrious Michael J Gelb. Hello,
Hello, everyone.
how are you?
Fabulous. How about you?
I'm good. I'm really looking forward to today's session because, I've seen a lot of your videos, I've read a lot of your papers, books, articles, and I'm really looking forward to a great time. Ladies, homework mummies, this is somebody who is extremely inspiring. He's one of the world's leading authority on the application of genius thinking. He's a personal and organizational development and leadership coach. He is an author of over 15 great books. Most of them are bestsellers of all times. And he's somebody who hears with his eyes, sees with his ears, feels with his heart. And we have with us today Michael J. Gelb. Thank you very much for gracing our community.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Today, we would be discussing one of the very successful books that you have written. Can you just briefly tell us how you came about with the idea for the book?
Sure. Well, my grandmother, Rosa, was an Italian painter. And when I was a little boy, she told me about Leonardo da Vinci, this amazing Renaissance genius. And, when you're little, you have heroes. And I had 2. One was Superman, who I read in the comics, and the other was Leonardo da Vinci. So as I got older, I found out that Superman was only a comic book character. Leonardo da Vinci turned out to be real.
True.
Right? And then I met my friend Tony Buzan, and we started to collaborate in 1975. And it turned out that Leonardo da Vinci was also Tony's hero. So we used to talk a lot about how to think like Leonardo da Vinci. And we used to teach together for many, many years. We taught a seminar around the world called the Mind and Body Seminar. And we would tell stories about Leonardo. We would show imagery from his notebook. So one day it just occurred to me, why don't I go really deep into this? Read all of Leonardo's notebooks, go to the place where Leonardo was born, go to the place where he died, walk in his footsteps, interview the great Leonardo scholars, go to the great museums of the world where I could study his works and answer this question. What is he trying to teach us so that we can live more creative, beautiful lives? What is he trying to teach us so we can be more effective and successful in our business? And most importantly for our group today, what is he trying to teach us so that we can be better parents and raise children who express the fullness of their creative power?
And I absolutely believe that children are functioning at their premium best before we start conditioning them to think and look a certain way and see the world the way we want them to see it. What are your views on the genius of children?
Well, if you think about the first principle for thinking like Leonardo da Vinci is curiosità. In English, curiosity. And it is our birthright. Who are the most curious people? Of course, they're little children before they go to school. Who has the most imagination? That's also children. And who has the most energy? Well, we know that that's definitely
children.
So what happens to many grown-ups is they start to stifle the imagination. They lose energy. And unfortunately, frequently they're taught that answers are more important than questioning. So for grown-ups to experience a renaissance of our birthright, we need to ask new, powerful questions, use our imagination, and you'll find you have so much more energy. Then as a parent, the key is to nurture and develop that curiosità so that it continues through schooling, through college, and into adulthood, so that we nurture people, individuals who are fully differentiated, who can think for themselves, who are genuinely creative, and more like Leonardo.
So I have a question, Michael. What are your views on AI? Because when we look at human genius and when we look at artificial intelligence, how do you compare the two, and what do you see as the future of human intelligence?
Well, I'm fascinated by AI and artificial intelligence, and I've met some of the leading minds in that realm. And the challenging part is not so much to connect human intelligence in terms of logical intelligence with AI, because AI's got that covered. The key is to connect human emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence with AI, so that AI is in service of the highest universal human values, which are reflected in all the world's traditions. Simple things like caring for one another, basic kindness and goodness. So that's the biggest challenge, is to connect the emotional and spiritual element with the unbelievable power that we're unleashing in AI.
That's so true. I was reading a book called Hello World, and it sort of contemplated a future where I suppose our kids would be part of that future, at least the start of that future. And it said that humans in the future would be making choices based uh, on their feelings and emotions and experiences, which AI probably does not have. So, for example, uh, you'd be buying a car, but you'd be deciding between a car that saves you in case of a crash or saves the maximum number of people in case of a crash. So your decision is a very human decision, whereas the car itself is run on AI.
Well, I would say that in a few years, none of us are going to be driving our own cars anyway. So that decision will just be debated in university philosophy class, when people are imagining what it's like to buy a car, because we don't do it anymore. They're all being run by AI. So I'm pretty sure that might be 10 years,
Yeah.
15 years from now. So enjoy driving your car and making a choice to buy one while you can. That is a limited luxury item that's disappearing soon.
That is so true, because when I was a kid, I was fascinated by Isaac Asimov, who was one of the
Yes.
pioneers in sci-fi writing and stuff. And I had a few books of his which I had sort of found in old thrift stores, and like I was reading through them, and one of them had this really short story which stuck to me and has now sort of come true, because it was about two children who discovered and found a book. They had never seen a physical book in their entire lives, because they had been taught on screens and they had computers and they had tabs. Of course, they're called something different in that story, but the idea is that they had never touched paper in their entire life, and how they cherish that feeling and how they hide it from everybody else in the family, that they've really found their grandmother's or great grandmother's book somewhere in the attic. It I think it's true, like you said, cars. I don't think we'd be knowing that decision. Like we don't read books, paperbacks anymore as frequently as we read on our screens, on our tabs, on our phones. Um, so yeah, the world keeps changing. I guess we have to keep changing with them. So I I think there's quite a few people who have joined us already. Um, so we have a lot of people saying children have great imagination. So yeah, we have people saying hello to you. And while more people come in, guys, let's have a small brain break, and it would just take us 2 to 3 minutes. It's a very small, short exercise to stretch our imagination. And let's get over to our presentation for that. Okay, how many uses for a paper clip can you come up with in 60 seconds? You've got 60 seconds. Start listing down as many uses of the paper clip that you can think of. It's 7:05. At exact 7:06, we would be discussing how many uses you actually came up with. Go ahead. If you want to involve your children, your kids into the exercise, you're more than welcome to do so. They might think of many more than we can. It's funny, Michael, when we're actually, noticing how time passes, it sort of feels like it's so much longer in a minute than 60 seconds. Einstein's theory of relativity,
That's
no?
right.
Guys, it's 7:06. How many uses did you come up with? Please start commenting. 5. Okay, not bad. Anybody else? I'm waiting for your comments. And your 1 minute is up. In case you're just, quickly scribbling through your notebook, don't do that. It's done. Okay, 3. Put papers together, hang ornaments, paper helicopter, fix a zipper. Okay. How many more? Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. We're looking for uses for the ordinary paper clip.
Fix a zipper.
That's a good one. Okay. Make bracelets. Okay. Hang pictures. That's also a new one. Come on, come on, come on, guys. More uses, more uses. Lock pick. I like that one.
That's great. Well, I saw something today. Somebody sent me something, and it was an unemployment application, and it said previous occupation, and it said thief, and then it said reason for applying for unemployment benefits. Everyone is home because of the pandemic, so I can't rob their houses.
Honesty, honesty. That was an honesty. Okay, join and make a train. Lots of DIYs. Try out your prints. Fix your scarf. Make a fridge magnet. Knitting needles. That's also interesting. Straighten it out and use it for artwork. My son's made small hangers with it for his uh, wrestlers' accessories. I am assuming Shabana Aziz Khan, this is you, because your son is into wrestlers and wrestling, and I think he's found a great use for it. So good going, guys. This is really good. We would now move to, just a second, please, the next task. Oh, you're still going on? Okay, you can make a bracelet with it, a necklace with it, tiny crochet hook. Let's move to the next exercise, guys. How many non-uses for a paper clip can you come up with in 60 seconds? Things that a paper clip can never ever be used for. Grab a pen and a paper and your imagination. Think of the wackiest non-uses that you can think of. Any sort of thinking and creativity is more than welcome on this community and in this session. It is 7:10 p.m. and we will be taking your answers at 7:11. And once again, we return to Einstein's theory of relativity and counting each second as you guys work on your exercise. Meanwhile, Michael, you can keep looking at the answers. I am just going as they're coming in. I'm just going to put them at the bottom of the screen. Can you read the bottom of the screen?
Yes.
Yeah. So we'll just be quiet and we'll be going through the uses that they're still sending in. Seal used packets of chips, not bad.
But we're getting lots of uses. We're not getting any. See what the non-uses are at the end of the minute.
Yeah. Yeah. So non-uses has started coming in. Not to use as an earbud. Okay. Not to use for drilling holes. Um, okay, we can discuss that. Guys, non-uses now. Non-uses. Things that they cannot be used for. I know they're a bit harder to think, but once you get going, it would just, I mean, the list would just start populating with a lot of non-users. Okay, there's one more. Don't use in place of a toothpick. I know the doctor has to say this. You know, I know. Cannot be used as money. Not used as a towel to absorb liquids. Not to use as a straw. Do not use to poke. Please don't. Cannot use it as a lip lock. No way. Not to be used as a toothpick. Okay, let let's let's take your answers and ask Michael if he can think of a way of using it for the non-use that you have mentioned. So, Michael, do you think it can ever be used as money?
Well, what if it was made of gold?
Yes, it can be. And I was just thinking that once upon a time, all sort of metals were melted and then sold, and whatever the paperclip is made of. Okay, non-use. Don't use paperclip to pierce paper. I think you can. No, Dr. Shazia? Send me an answer why you think it can't be used to pierce a piece of paper. Okay, laptop table glass, it can't be used. Mm, what do you say, Michael?
Well, I think we have to distinguish between what we might consider to be everyday practical uses versus possible uses. And of course, this paperclip exercise is part of the Stanford University Torrance tests of creative thinking. And this particular test turns out to be a test of mental fluency. In other words, of our ability to generate lots of ideas. So when you're trying to do the first test where you're asked to think of uses for a paperclip, the average adult comes up with about 4 or 5 answers per minute. And this has proven to be true with global groups. I've done this myself
Yeah.
countless times with parents, with kids, with corporate executives all over the world. And Tony Buzan was doing it for many years, for 10 years before I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did it together with all kinds of groups. So basically, we've heard everything that people think you can use it for and everything they think you can't use it for.
Cannot use it for.
But what's most interesting is that uh, the real point of this is to look at our mental fluency. And when we ask most adults, think of as many as you can, they come up with 4 or 5. 6, 7 is pretty high score. 8 is really unusual. Now, the Stanford researchers will tell you that 16 or higher correlates with other genius level measures of creative thinking, which obviously most people don't have to worry about.
Yeah.
However, and this is very relevant to what we were discussing earlier. A few years ago, I did a seminar for 80 gifted children down in Virginia, the state of Virginia. And I gave them this test. And they all got genius scores. They got 20 answers per minute or more because they realized right away that you can use a paperclip for anything and there are no non-uses. You could say, well, you can't use it for food. Oh, yeah, what if it was made of chocolate?
Yeah.
You can't use it for money. What if it was made of gold? Because there's no specification also as to what it was made of, how big it was. So what we know about physics is the matter in that paperclip, the energy in that paperclip is enough to fuel the entire world for thousands of years if we knew how to harness it. And the real point of this is learning how to access your imagination to get out of just thinking of the habitual uses and to think of as many uses. Now, that ability, that mental fluency, turns out to be a very important skill for all of us to learn, but it's especially useful for kids when you're going through school and you have to write an essay and you need to think of ideas. So most kids, unfortunately, say, oh my God, I have to get this right. And they start thinking, what do I start with? What's number one? How do I begin? And then they get frustrated because they don't know how to start. But I believe you've had explorations of mind mapping on previous club meetings. So you've all probably already experienced that part of the power of mind mapping, which, by the way, is one of the great methodologies for thinking like Leonardo da Vinci, is mental fluency. In other words, the structure of mind mapping, where you start in the center instead of at the top of the page, and you go off in different directions, invites the brain to express itself more fluidly without worrying about getting the wrong answer. Then, after you express yourself with great fluency, then you come back and think critically and you say, okay, what are the most useful ideas here? What order shall I put them in? And then you iterate and reiterate until you have manifested your creative product, whether it's an essay, or a book or a strategic plan or a financial plan or whatever it is you're working on.
So I have another question here, that when you say financial plan and strategic plan, adults especially are made to think that it cannot be and should not be creative, and it should be going by the book and following laws and stuff. Uh, you've been teaching corporate leaders throughout a number of years, and is this something that needs to be corrected as well?
Yes, very much so. Look, let's be really clear. Order, rationality, laws are very, very important. We couldn't have a society, we couldn't function, we couldn't run a business. Engineering functions by very certain, very clear principles. We built a renovation on our home. We wanted to follow precise, accurate. That's not the time when we're doing the engineering to practice mental fluency. We do the mental fluency when we're thinking of the design.
Design, exactly.
So we want to make it beautiful. So this is what's called design thinking. But and Leonardo was the first great, truly great design thinker. The danger is, here's the real danger for most people, whether there tend to be two kinds of people. Some people are very orderly, follow the rules, want to do everything by the book, want to make sure everything is logical and orderly and done the way it's always been done. Other people are very imaginative, artistic, they think of all sorts of new possibilities, but they're not always the most orderly or logical or focused people. Neither of these people is a Renaissance person or a contemporary Renaissance person. So the fifth principle for thinking like Leonardo is arte scienza. Balance art and science, logic and imagination, reason and intuition. Use your whole brain, and then learn when is it appropriate to do mental fluency and think of new things. There's a timing where that's just right. Then there's a point where, okay, we need to get down and make a decision, so we have to consolidate these and analyze these and find ways of testing these. Then there's another time where we need to be more expansive. So this is just like breathing.
Yeah.
We inhale and we exhale. If you say, I'm in favor of inhaling only, or let's just exhale, sorry, you will expire. We need a rhythm between, this is nature in everything. We have the daylight, we have the evening, we have the shift of the seasons, and our brain works the same way. So what we train people to do is to become aware of the optimal functioning of the brain. And that's why it helps to learn to think like Leonardo da Vinci, because there's no greater genius in human history. And then apply that to your own style or proclivity. So if you're more formal, orderly, logical, it's especially important for you to learn fluency and imagination and playfulness. And if you're more fluent, imaginative, and playful, you probably need to work on logic and analysis and order. And again, the beauty of mind mapping is, although it encourages mental fluency, it invites us to use pictures and images that strengthen the imagination. It's lots of fun. It also, by encouraging us to print keywords on lines, the analytical part of your mind must become engaged to decide what keyword to use. And it gets you to actually be more precise, focused, and logical in your thinking, while also being more imaginative, playful, and fluent. And that's, by the way, what geniuses do. And that's why I refer to mind mapping as the Da Vinci genius methodology.
I absolutely agree with you, because you have to break it down to the lowest common denominator. I mean, the simplest, lowest possible denominator that sort of, ignites you to make several different connections from that word, and all the memories or all the knowledge that you associate with it sort of, comes in handy when you're reviewing your mind map or when you're building your mind map. And as Tony would often stress upon, that although there's a lot of different types of diagrams that are in the modern day and age uh, promoted as mind maps or seen as mind maps, the original optimal mind map is what Tony decided and designed and promoted, and it should just have one word on each branch. If you have more than one words, that might just make your brain think a certain way. If you have just one word, you would think of 10 different connections with it, and you would always be open to, I mean, that mind map will keep blooming and blooming and blooming, and you'd keep thinking and thinking, and your thought would get bigger and better. So it's very important that you put a single word on a single branch of a mind map. With that, I would hand the floor over to Michael. We would be seeing a presentation that I would roll the slides through, but Michael would actually be explaining this, how to think like Leonardo da Vinci and how to help our children think like a genius. And it's something, Michael, if you would just like to give us a little introduction on, is it possible even to think like Leonardo da Vinci?
Yes. Yes.
Of course, of
Yes.
course. Why not? He was a human and we are human, right?
Uh, I wouldn't have written this book if it wasn't. No. No, okay, I was only kidding. No, I really made this. No, it really, here's the great thing. Leonardo da Vinci, in his notebooks, gives specific practical advice to his students on how to develop creativity, how to use full potential. So, as I was reading his notebooks over and over again, I was asking that question: what's he trying to teach us? What are the specific messages from Leonardo to his students? And then how could I translate those into contemporary language so that we could apply them today? And look, Leonardo is a global archetype of human potential. We see his Vitruvian man figure is all over the world as a symbol of human power and potentiality. Mona Lisa is the single most recognized work of art in all of human history. One of Leonardo's paintings, the Salvator Mundi, in which he's the Christ figure is holding an orb that represents the globe and doing this mudra of blessing, just sold for $450 million. $450 million, more than 500 years after Leonardo painted it. Last week, there was, people send me, obviously you can imagine all this Leonardo information, and somebody sent me a link about how these cardiologists discovered one of Leonardo's drawings of the ventricles of the heart that helped them better understand the nature and functioning of the heart. So this is somebody over 500 years ago exploring the very essence, the very nature of creation, and his observations were so brilliant, so precise, that 500 years later, scientists and physicians are still informed by them. So, whatever you want to learn, you study whoever's best at it. We just finished the basketball championships here, the National Basketball Association. It was delayed. They played it in a bubble over the summer, the playoffs. And the Los Angeles Lakers won. And their greatest player is LeBron James. So there's a huge debate going on and I love basketball. I have a hoop outside my window here. And there's a huge debate over who's the greatest player of all time. Is it LeBron James? Is it Kobe Bryant? Is it Magic Johnson? Is it Larry Bird? But most people today still think it's Michael Jordan, but maybe it's Wilt Chamberlain or Bill Russell, and you keep going back. because Michael Jordan grew up with his heroes, and that's how he got inspired to develop his game. And for Kobe and LeBron, Michael Jordan was their
Was
number
the
one
second.
hero.
Yeah.
And now kids walk around everywhere with a Kobe jersey or a LeBron jersey because that's their hero. And it's not just athletes. Einstein had a picture of Isaac Newton hung above his bed because Newton was his hero. And Newton said, I stand on the shoulders of giants.
Science. Yes.
So having a role model, and this again is why we're all here, because you know, as a parent, you're the role model, for better or for worse. And the kids listen more to what they see you do than what they hear you say. So always my first guidance for parents is take the 7 principles and the practices and integrate them into your own life so that you become the living representative of whoever the great beings are that you want to inform your household. So I'm just inviting everybody to bring Leonardo into your household as a role model and as an example. Now, does that mean that you will paint the Mona Lisa or the Last Supper or make all these inventions? Of course not. Because the idea of thinking like Leonardo, it doesn't look. I know I'm not going to be LeBron James or Michael Jordan, but just studying players like that and a previous generation has always helped me be a better basketball player. I watch what they do, and I can get better to find my own game. So Leonardo can help everyone find their own genius and then cultivate the specific skills you need to express that and manifest it professionally, personally, and of course as a parent.
That's brilliant. And one of the movies by Disney, Ratatouille. Have you ever seen it?
It's classic.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
So when I was seeing, can you hold for a second, please? Okay. So, so what happened was that like he always had this vision of Chef Gustav.
Sorry, say that again.
So Ratatouille always had this vision of Chef Gustav,
Right.
right? So when I heard your video for the first time, I could imagine you with Leonardo going to the same places, seeing visions of him.
Well, we there's a Machiavelli, the author of The Prince, and one of the great misunderstood geniuses of the Renaissance, explains his methodology for writing the great books that he wrote. And he says that what he would do is he would, at the end of a long day of work, he would change his clothes and put on his most elegant garments. And then he would enter into this special room in his house, and in his imagination, he would go back to ancient Greece,
Wow.
and he would have imaginary dialogues with Plato and Socrates and Aristotle and Phidias. And he would use his full imagination to speak to these geniuses and then listen to their responses. So this is actually something that all of us can do, because what we do know is the power of our imagination is limitless, but you have to direct it. What do you want to use it for? What kind of questions do you ask every day? And this is why curiosità is the first principle, because the process of questioning, what we focus on, to a large extent determines the quality of our life every day. So the ancient,
So
go ahead.
so I'm just saying that without much further ado, let's get to your presentation. so that you can walk us through Curiosita and all the other principles that can help us think like Leonardo.
Sure. Well, you just put up any slide and I'll talk about it. So there's the book. This,
Yes, this
this
book is
book.
available for sale.
Yes.
Guys, I found it on Amazon, and you can always order it from there as well.
So we can all teach ourselves how to, I like to say, access our genius. Curiosità is the first principle, an insatiably curious approach to life and an unrelenting quest for continuous learning. And obviously, I put these in Italian to reflect Leonardo, but the translations into English are pretty simple. Curiosità is curiosity. Here we see some of Leonardo's inventions, sketches of those inventions, the parachute, the prototype for the helicopter and the tank. This is all from more than 500 years ago.
So
More,
he was so curious that he would like to imagine machines for not just land but the air, the water, under the sea, right?
everything. He invented the parachute before anybody could fly, which I think is a perfect metaphor for thinking ahead.
And
Right?
his notebooks.
Bill Gates paid $30.8 million for 72 pages of Leonardo da Vinci's notebooks in 1994,
Wow.
just to connect himself with this legendary genius. And to Bill Gates' credit, he sent this exhibition all over the world. I actually was invited to speak at it. Microsoft was a major client of mine, and I actually taught Microsoft how to think like Leonardo da Vinci.
Wow. So, we can see there's so much happening in these notebooks. Like one might think that, the page on the right has nothing to do with the page on the left, but I am sure that in his head, he was just thinking freely.
Well, it's like the paperclip test. His mind was free. He was just letting it go. He was being wildly fluent, and then he would come back and organize it later.
So, how many notebooks did he actually have in his lifetime?
Well, there are approximately 7,000 pages that exist to this day, but scholars estimate that originally there were about twice that many. So just as we find these lost Leonardo paintings every now and then, we're hoping that some of his lost notebooks may turn up someday, but paper parchment is harder to preserve, so vellum, some of them may be lost forever.
So when we talk about Curiosita, how do the notebooks connect with that?
Well, it's a first simple, very practical tip for everybody to think like Leonardo. Leonardo says, everywhere you go, carry with you a little notebook. And when you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, or get out of the shower, or walk in nature, or get finished meditating or praying or whatever you do, when your mind is more relaxed, that's when people tend to have their best ideas. So he says, write your ideas down in your notebook. And so this is the first practical step for thinking like Leonardo, is keep a notebook with you wherever you go and write down your ideas.
Okay, asking you a question, Michael. When do you get your best ideas?
I get a lot of great ideas. I do, because obviously I'm teaching this, I'm immersed in this. This is my life. So having said that, I say the main times are, I do wake up in the middle of the night, and I just come in, my bedroom's there. This is my office. I come in here and I just write them down. In one of I have different notebooks for different sort of topics.
Okay.
So middle of the night for me, but also we live right next to the Rockefeller State Preserve, which is a beautiful park. So every day that the weather allows, I walk for about an hour and no devices, in silence. And in the beginning of the walk, my mind tends to be chattering and thinking about the issues and the business of the day. But after I walk for about a half an hour, my mind starts to quiet down. And usually by the end of my walk, there's an amazing flow of illumination and new ideas. So I come back from my walk, I write it down in my notebook.
I was also reading somewhere that different creative people have different stimulants that help them think. There are certain creative people who have certain rituals that, like you said, your walk, for example, which might not be a ritual, but a lot of people, sort of say, I have to go on a walk, I have to think straight, I have to, declutter my thoughts. Did you ever think of having some sort of an induced creativity or an activity that lead you to be creative?
Well, this is why the book is everything I've learned about how you do that, because I've been exploring this question for more than 40 years. So I've been asking the question, how do we optimize our creativity? How can I have the most perfect creative flow in my day? How can I get the most useful ideas, make new connections between them with the least amount of effort? So there are universal principles. If you study genius, they all work really hard at something, but without exception, they get their best ideas when they're relaxed and receptive. So this tells us something. Work hard, have a question, passionately explore it, learn everything you can, then let go and be receptive. Be open. And that's when you see this is my official t-shirt logo. This is when the impulse, the lightning bolt of inspiration will then come to you.
Absolutely beautiful. Is this merchandise available for sale as well?
We get a lot of requests, but we don't have them for sale yet, but stay tuned.
Please do let us know,
Yeah,
because
we're going to have to do it because everybody wants to. Every time I talk to people, say, can I get one of those t-shirts? So let's make sure people, if everybody comes to michaelgelb.com, they can sign up for our free newsletter, and we'll let them know. We do all sorts of free things all the time. We're putting out articles and videos, and we're not going to make t-shirts for free, but we'll give everybody a good deal.
Thank you so much, because like you said, uh, that children especially, like they like looking they they like looking like their heroes. So like if you're wearing a LeBron James t-shirt, you're feeling like an athlete or a sportsman or a basketball player. And if you're wearing, I say, something like you're wearing right now, you would probably have that bolt of imagination.
Yes.
Right? So we would love to have the t-shirts. I'm sorry, let's get back to the presentation now.
So these are Leonardo's sketches of flowers. He always looked at everything from at least three perspectives. You'll see there's three different angles. This illustration is actually on page 50 of the book. Let's keep going. So yes, dimostrazione is the second principle. It's the commitment to test knowledge through experience, persistence, and the willingness to learn from mistakes. It's a word that Leonardo actually uses in his notebooks. And what we would say today is it means really think for yourself. Be an independent thinker. Look at important issues from different perspectives.
Great, great.
Sensazione is the third principle, and that's a continual refinement of the senses, especially sight, as a means to enliven our experience. So Leonardo trained his sensory awareness like an Olympic athlete trains their body for competition. And this is, in some ways, my most fun chapter in the book and fun part to teach in seminars, because what it's really about is learning to appreciate beauty and refine your senses. And one way of doing that, of course, is by appreciating art. The image we're seeing here is a painting by Leonardo's teacher, Verrocchio. It's obviously called the Baptism of Christ. But Leonardo, who was a young apprentice at the time, was asked to paint the angel in the corner, the one with the flowing blonde hair. And when Verrocchio came back and saw how beautiful Leonardo's angel was, according to Giorgio Vasari, the first art historian, Verrocchio would never touch colors again. Now, the romantic interpretation of this is that Verrocchio was so moved by his student's genius that he just couldn't paint. But the more realistic business interpretation is that Verrocchio said, aha, I can now delegate the painting department to the talented young Leonardo, and I can concentrate on the more profitable practice of sculpture. So this painting is in the Uffizi Gallery in Florence in Italy. And as soon as it's safe for everybody to travel, I recommend you take a field trip there and see this for yourself, because the Da Vinci angel is so exquisitely beautiful. It doesn't just stand out from this painting, it stands out in the whole treasure house of the Uffizi Gallery, one of the most magnificent museums in the world. And if you look carefully at the image of the two angels, one by another pupil of Verrocchio and the one with the curly hair by Leonardo, the other angel looks like a bored choir boy. You know, this painting is about a miracle.
Yeah.
But this other angel looks like, okay, whatever, got to do my paperwork, fill out the forms, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. Whereas Leonardo's angel looks like this is a miracle, which is the real subject of the painting. And it was Einstein who said, there are two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle, right? So, and how do you do that practically? You learn to appreciate beauty. You learn to distinguish light and shade, color, aroma. So right here, this is my office. It really is beautiful. This is where I work. There's a aromatherapy atomizer here with lavender and rose, Leonardo's favorite scents. They're beautiful paintings. There's a Chinese scroll over there, beautiful plants. I have models of Leonardo da Vinci inventions and artwork. I have my books. I have the sunlight and my favorite willow tree. I have my dog sleeping in the garden over here. So I do my best to create, just like Leonardo did. Leonardo said you must create a beautiful studio to inspire yourself to do more creative work, to be more visionary. Not to mention that it's the best way, or one of the best ways, to transform stress is to appreciate beauty, because it brings us into the present moment. And if you're really present in the moment, you're happy.
So this leads me to another question. What sort of exercises can we do to feel this beauty, see this beauty, enjoy it, and be inspired by it?
Well, the simplest one is to do what I call comparative appreciation. And your brain loves to make comparisons. So find beautiful things that you love and then find more than one of them. So for example, let's say you like chocolate. So get chocolate, very high quality. The higher quality, the better, obviously. And then let's say you get one that is 60% cacao, one that is 72%, and one that is 85%. And put little squares of the chocolate out for yourself and your guests and your friends. And then put the chocolate in your mouth and let it just melt in your mouth. And then describe your impressions. And then try the next one. What you'll find is, because you're really focusing in on the chocolate, first of all, it tastes more delicious than it ever has before. Second of all, you don't need to eat as much because it's so much more satisfying. Third of all, you discover amazing differences between these chocolates. Then you hear your friends' descriptions and you learn something about the chocolate that you never would have learned before, but now your friend is sharing it with you. But even better, you learn something about your friend and you connect with your friend in a way you never would have before. And now you can do the same thing with honey from different apiaries, from different kinds of tea. And then you can look at the work of different artists. You can listen to your favorite composer. Whatever it could be, or your favorite instrumentalist. It could be anything, from Ali Akbar Khan to Mozart. Whatever you like, listen to them play different pieces. Listen to the same piece played by different artists. Listen to the same composition by different conductors, with the same orchestra or different orchestras. And you ask yourself this question: how does this move me? How do I relate to this? What are my impressions? The beauty of that question is there's no wrong answer. So then people get amazingly inspired by the simplest, a piece of chocolate. And music is basically free in the world today. You can look at the art of great artists and look at different images and share them with your family and friends and say, what do you see? You look at Monet and Manet.
In
What?
fact,
Right?
yesterday I was watching this piece of news that there's this new exhibition of Picasso's art in Italy, and they have connected it with music because musical instruments feature in a lot of his paintings. And although he is attributed to have said at one point in time that he absolutely hates it, it's a bit mysterious that musical notes and musical instruments so often appear in his art. And they have sort of connected those dots, and the exhibition is about the music of Picasso alongside his artwork. And I thought that's a very different and a very interesting take on a classic.
That's wonderful. And that's a sensazione exploration. The more we cross-reference the senses, this is the one thing that geniuses do. The word is synesthesia, the merging of the senses. And so our next principle is sfumato, the willingness to embrace ambiguity, paradox, and uncertainty, which is very important in the world today. This is, this is Leonardo's St. John. It's in the Louvre. This is another must-see. Everybody goes to see the Mona Lisa, and they walk right by this, and they don't realize this is amazing Leonardo. But look at St. John. First of all, he's touching his heart. He's pointing up to heaven. He's got a smile that might be even more mysterious than the Mona Lisa. Plus, he's a remarkably androgynous figure, because Leonardo loves to invite us into the sense of mystery. So Sfumato says, embrace uncertainty and the unknown. Keep your sense of humor. Keep your smile. Keep your connection to a higher purpose, to spiritual guidance. Keep your heart alive and open, and be playful and explore the mystery. It's so beautiful.
It's beautiful. It is beautiful. And that gesture itself, it says so much.
And then, of course, arte scienza. We talked about this before. Balance art and science, logic and imagination. Use your whole brain. Make mind maps. And there she is. Oh, so let's try this together. Here's an exercise everybody can do. I did this exercise with those gifted children. Let's all do it together right now. Because people are always curious, what is she smiling about? What is she smiling about? So let's all assume the Mona position. Assume the Mona position and imitate Mona's smile. So we'll do this as a little meditation for 10 seconds, right? So smile like Mona for 10 seconds, concentrate. And then ask yourself the question, how does it make you feel when you smile like Mona Lisa? So when I did this exercise with the gifted children, first of all, you know how these children are they're so engaged, and they really want to learn. They're so passionate. They have so much curiosità. So they do the exercise all in. They're just totally focused on it. And they're really concentrating. And then one of the kids in the class says, she's got a secret. And another kid says, yeah, she knows that everything has an opposite. And then the kids start saying opposites like day and night, light and dark, boys and girls, good and bad, life and death. When I do this with corporate groups, a little while ago, somebody said, I read in the Wall Street Journal that the famous smile was caused by a dental problem. No, the gifted children understand Mona's smile. She's going right into the mystery of life. Certainty is the only thing we know for sure is there's nothing that we know for sure except that there is a knower. Except that there is a knower. Except that there is awareness, that there is presence, that there is being, that there is this deep quality of knowing that we are here and now and awake. So that source of awareness is the only certain thing in the phenomenal world. Everything is always changing. So you better become comfortable with change because things will never settle down. Everybody waiting, when will it get back to the way when can we count? It's not happening. It's not happening. As change is accelerating exponentially through, especially in the last 500 years, and even more so in the last 50 years, and even more so in the last 10 years, and even more so in the last year. So what's the trend? So embracing change, more important than ever to be able to have that little Mona Lisa smile.
And can you please help us learn more about why you chose the Mona Lisa as the embodiment of arte scienza?
Sure, because she is obviously a famous work of art, probably the most famous one in human history, but she's also a masterpiece of science. Leonardo's study of anatomy, of proportionality and mathematics, of perspective, the way the background is depicted is based on a deep study of how water flows, how mountains form, how the atmosphere actually operates. So this is geology, this is botany, this is hydraulics, this is mathematics. Before these disciplines had anything close to their modern incarnation, Leonardo was pioneering all of them. So this is a masterpiece of science as well as art.
That's beautiful. And I've also heard that Mona locks her gaze with the viewer. Wherever the viewer moves, the eyes would move with the viewer. Did you try that when you were standing in front of a portrait?
Oh yeah, it's anywhere you go, she's looking right at you.
I mean that's that's genius. I don't know
Genius.
how.
No, it's then there's even more. We could spend hours just talking about this painting. It's amazing.
It's amazing. Um,
Right, so everybody knows about STEM, which is very important. A lot of my business clients sponsor these STEM programs to promote science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. However, we know that compared to scientists in general, elite scientists are more likely to have some kind of artistic pursuit. So in the United States, scientists, technologists, mathematicians who are in our National Academy of Sciences are 1.7 times more likely to have an artistic pursuit. In England, members of the Royal Society are 1.8 times more likely to have an artistic pursuit, and Nobel laureates are 2.8 times more likely to have some kind of artistic pursuit. So if we go to our next slide, we can see that it's really important to replace STEM with STEAM: science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So Leonardo is the supreme role model for STEAM. And I've been lucky enough to meet a number of Nobel laureates. The one I got to know the best was Murray Gell-Mann, who won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1969. He figured out quarks through equations in his mind, and only a few years later, when they built a bigger collider, were they able to prove that he was right? So boom, they gave him the Nobel Prize. And Murray says a couple of really interesting. First of all, Murray was an art collector, passionate about the arts, passionate about nature, loved. He had an amazing collection of sculpture from pre-Columbian sculpture. I mean, museum quality in his home, where I visited him many, many times. He loved to study nature. He tried to see every species of bird on the whole planet. That was one of his goals for his life. He didn't quite make it, but he saw most of them. And he also said something really interesting too. He said, in theoretical physics, it's quite interesting that a theory that is more beautiful is more likely to be true. So this is where we connect beauty and truth and goodness. So science, technology, engineering, and math need to be integrated with art. This is arte scienza. This is what Leonardo represents for the world today.
That's brilliant.
So corporalita, the cultivation of ambidexterity, fitness, and poise. For a lot of people, this is a missing link in genius, but Leonardo was renowned as the strongest man in Florence. He was a master equestrian, a fencer. History records that he was also a juggler, which I was thrilled to hear about since I worked as a professional juggler. I juggled live on stage with Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones. And I, of course, was Tony Buzan's juggling teacher. And this, we took Leonardo, in the book, I took just Leonardo's guidance on for diet, for health, for exercise. He taught all this to his students over 500 years ago. So it's even more relevant, probably more important now than it used to be. And everybody's familiar with this symbol of health, of wholeness, of corporalita, Leonardo's Vitruvian figure. So yes, this is a great Leonardo painting, also in the Uffizi. It's called The Adoration of the Magi. And we'll look at the next painting. Everybody's even more familiar with the next painting, the Last Supper. Both of these paintings are masterpieces that changed art forever and changed the way people think about portraying human figures in space. They changed our concept of space. They changed our concept of the power and potentiality of humanity. Because in the West, in Europe, for the Middle Ages, everybody knows it. Figures were very stiff. They were two-dimensional. They had those halos. They didn't look real. They're always looking up to heaven, but in this sort of very unreal, non-human way. Now we see in the Adoration and in the Last Supper, they look like you and me. They're in 3 dimensions, and they're showing real human emotion. Because the message of these paintings and the message of the Renaissance is that the spark of the divine is in all of us. And the question then is, how do you access it? And those are the principles and the practices for thinking like Leonardo. So this leads us to our 7th principle, connezione, a recognition of an appreciation for the interconnectedness of all things and phenomena. So one of the great things that geniuses do that most people don't is they see connections that other people don't see. And cultivating this ability is something we do through mind mapping. So this was the mind map that I made many years ago before I was about to give the first talk on how to think like Leonardo da Vinci. And it's all of my notes for the whole talk.
And this sort of, even today, what we've been through, this sort of summarizes that completely, perfectly, brilliantly. And guys, as you can see, there's just one word per branch. There are pictures, there are connections, there are visuals. Of course, this is drawn by somebody who's a master at the art.
But what's great too is people find that if and don't, please, I advise you, don't just copy this on your screen. Copy this out by hand so you can practice making a mind map. Because you see the image in the center, the parachute. Leonardo invented it. It represents thinking ahead. The image below that is the Vitruvian figure representing our human potential. Ask questions, keep a notebook. Learn from experience, look at things from 3 different perspectives. Sharpen all your senses, especially sight. Sfumato, use your intuition, find the balance of light and dark. Arte scienza, balance the 2 sides of your brain. Corporalità, learn to juggle, balance your body and mind. And connezione, be a systems thinker. Look for relations and connections that you might not normally see. And the beauty of this is that mind mapping is a practical way to help you do that. So it's not just some theoretical, metaphysical notion. This is something you can raise children who learn how to think like Leonardo, who use mind mapping so that their exams become easy. They become good at writing essays. They can do so effortlessly. They become good at public speaking. I just, where is it? My latest book just came out last month, and it's called Mastering the Art of Public Speaking. And I got to show you, every chapter has a mind map summary. And then we have a mind map summary of the whole book. And the third chapter of the book is all about how to use mind mapping to prepare your presentation. Because if there's one use that I've seen help people profoundly in the course of their career, it is learning to do this to prepare your own speech. And I've taught that to many people who became CEOs, to many entrepreneurs who are starting up companies. Some of them are now retired because I've been doing this a really long time. But I'll tell you the other great thing about mind mapping is you see all my bookshelves back here. Well, there's more than one shelf of books that are books that people sent me because they wrote their first book after I taught them how to make a mind map and use it to write a book.
Wow.
So, and you mentioned, so I've written 17 books. They're right here. They're all written with mind mapping, all of them. It's what I use to help my clients make a strategic plan, a vision, mission, values to set their goals. When I work with private coaching clients, I have a private coaching client now who's a CEO. He sold his first company. He's on to his second company. He reached out to me. He said, I want to have greater impact in my life. Will you be my coach? What am I doing? I'm helping him make a mind map of his whole life so he can see his highest purpose, his most important values, his most important goals in every area of his life. And then we can look. I mean, I'll tell you something really interesting. He's a brilliant guy. Brilliant. I mean, a mathematician. He went to Cambridge. I mean, he's very, very bright fellow and great businessman. He already sold a company. He's very successful already. But he wants to make his life more impactful. And he has 2 children. He wants to be a better father. And like many people, being so successful has put a strain on his marriage. So I was looking at him at the whole mind map. I'm not worried about this guy making another $100 million. That's not going to be his problem. His problem is going to be making sure that his kids have enough time with him and that when the kids leave home, he and his wife stay together. So I'm getting him to make a mind map now on how can he reconnect and revitalize his marriage with his wife so that the children will grow up with a happy role model of parents who worked through the challenges that happen to many people when they've been married a long time. And now I know this because that's what my parents did. They didn't do it with mind maps, but they worked on their own marriage. They stayed together. They're going to be married for 70 years in February. My dad's 93. My mom's 90. My dad just got out of hospital for 3 months, and I'm going to visit him tomorrow. He's doing great. We're going to go for a walk outside. So, in terms of like what's the most important in life, if you don't make a mind map of your life and look at the big picture and really think about it, what happens is you get caught up in habit. You get caught up in what's what's happening on your phone and what are they trying to sell you now? What are they trying to make you think about? And how are they going to dominate your mind so that it's not about your highest values or purpose, but instead it's about whatever thing, weakness or fear they're trying to exploit to sell you something that you don't need. So make a mind map of your life, share it with your family, and then you can do what Leonardo advises us: fix your course through a star, and you'll navigate through any storm.
Thank you so much, Michael, for your time. Let's get back to the studio now. Stop the screen share. This was a lovely session. Guys, I am leaving the comments open so that you can comment with your appreciation for the time that Michael has taken out for us, for the energy he's put into this session. And I hope that as mothers, we can raise uh, kids who realize their full potential. All of us are born geniuses, and I don't see any reason why we should settle for anything less for our kids. Right? It was a pleasure having you over, Michael.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. People are invited to be in touch. michaelgelb.com, GELB. Sign up for our newsletter. It's free. We'll keep you in the loop about all the fun things we're doing. It was great to be with you. Grazie mille. Ciao.
Bye. Ciao.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye bye.